Hey y'all. So it came to my attention I had actually forgotten episode 4, but it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna put this up now because I have notes. This is a review for the Kindred Miniseries episode 4, The Waiter from 2 nights ago. All right. So it begins with the nosy white woman sees them being Kevin and Dana reemerging from the Maryland labor camp, and walks over to their house with her husband, opens the unlocked door in Los Angeles. Okay, I lived in Los Angeles. I went to graduate school there. Okay, that you're right. Okay, you're right. That somebody's gonna leave their door unlocked like that. So they think they're having sex and then they run. That's the only thing that made you run. Not the fact that you were trespassing on someone's property, right? Anyway, he helps her get water because she is responding. Kevin helps Dana get water because she's responding to the poison that her mom gave her. So then we get the scene where Aunt Denise calls Uncle Alan to go and check on Dana because she sounds weird. And because Dana was asking all these questions about her mother and so on and so forth. Alan, the angry, emotionally unattached black male, is laying in bed, unwilling, and claiming that perhaps she was on something. Because Denise and Alan's relationship definitely seems healthy at this point. And because the black male uncle must be angry, unhappy, inattentive to the needs of his black niece, while a white stranger in this miniseries, but was her husband in the book, knows her from waiting on her at a restaurant and now cares for her over the course of days more than anybody who has known her most of her life. And he just happens to be white. I cannot, with the white savior, think that you just can't, Hollywood cannot release itself from it. Anyway, so Kevin manages to get water and something in her drink to help her. I can't remember exactly what. I don't know if it's alcohol or whatever. So she automatically goes back to normal. He says he doesn't think it was poison, and it doesn't matter now. She knows how to send herself back. And Dana was like, this can never happen again, because if she has to get close to death or die to get back, it doesn't help. So Kevin has the idea of making sure Dana has supplies for the next time this happens, because it can happen anytime. So what might be small to someone else was a big deal for me. So throughout the book, okay, which this is based on, Dana is always thinking and always preparing. It was her idea to grab supplies because she knew she would need it, whether to defend herself from patrollers or to help other enslaved people who she could tell didn't have, medical attention like they needed. I just got the shower. Or to help other enslaved people as they needed, or to deal with Rufus. So she, gets Tylenol, all these sort of things, and weapons, whatever she needed. So it was not Kevin's idea, but the Hollywood imagination has to have the dopey, unknowing white man who still manages to give Dana great ideas that will protect her because the white savior is always there. And black people just can't seem to be smart on their own. And there are people that would disagree. Well, I don't think that's a big deal. Yeah, I know. But if you were black and perpetually being depicted that way, you probably would have a problem with it. So just put yourself in our shoes for a second. Think. All right. So then Kevin is so oblivious because he apparently doesn't have an ounce of racism in him. So he continues to be perceived as just not able to consume these acts of racism because he's so above it. He's so dumb and he's so innocent. Also, she's trailing around with her waiter. Let's not forget that. Kevin was her waiter the night before and her fake Uber guy in this series because he gives her a ride home. Instead of her husband, she bought a new house with in the book. So tell me, even if someone was to reimagine this story, how a black woman, unmarried, shacking up, coming from a dysfunctional, broken family, is any different from what is depicted even in the cheapest of low-budget movies about black people. And oftentimes the highest budgets. Exactly. All right. Anyway, so the sister shows up to her house and says hi to Dana, even though she has no idea. The sister, Kevin's sister, shows up to Kevin's sister, her own home. And says hi to Dana, even though she has no idea why a black woman with a black eye is in her house. Yeah, that wouldn't happen. She's not alarmed enough to scream, and Karen, which actually would be appropriate seeing Dana in her living room, and not being the sister-in-law in the series makes this all the more interesting. And she has like a smidgen of her part. Like they mentioned that he has a sister. All right. But she says, I figured you were with Kevin. Ask her about her eye. Tries to get her some ice. And then continues to ask Kevin, once he comes out, what he's been doing. Like has to be getting into trouble. And he says he was just getting Dana this book. Which happens to be, drum roll please, none other than Beloved by Toni Morrison. Okay. Okay, white man. Yes, you had to go and get her the Toni Morrison book, Beloved. Of all books. Of all books. And you know they put that in there on purpose. Because they just, but it's giving nothing. Okay, it's giving nothing. All right, so then Alan comes up to Dana's house, Uncle Alan, and sees two white men fighting in the front yard. Because Kevin told Karen, her neighbor, because I don't know her name, don't remember it, don't care. He basically told her to fuck off. So he punches Kevin for telling his wife to fuck off, and Kevin punches him back. Alan hops out of his car because I guess he is, even though he's still angry, he's going to go over there and check on his niece with no compassion whatsoever. And he breaks up the fight. He's apparently able to do that between two white men, and says he's Dana's uncle and LAPD, and pulls out a badge. Just when this was getting bad, it gets worse. So now we have an angry, inattentive black male, how original, who works for the LAPD, one of the most violent organizations in the history of the United States against African Americans. I lived in LA, like I told you, for graduate school. The reputation is more than deserved. So not only, and I'm telling you as somebody who has been stopped, okay, by the LAPD. All right? So not only are we spending an episode focused on Kevin, as opposed to Dana, the African-American female protagonist for which the book is based completely on, but we are now creating characters that didn't exist, that I guess are supposed to be creative and different, but have nothing to do with Kindred, and the historical integrity of Octavia Butler's work. I have a problem with that, in case you couldn't tell. All right, so Alan asked if Kevin hit her because she has a black eye. All right, legitimate question. That's legit question. All right, even though this happens in the doctor's office in the book, I'm going to let it slide. So he asked him to wait outside while he talks to his niece. Dana takes up for him and says, you don't get to talk about him that way. I guess her master that way. That's what she should have said. Never mind. But so she sends him back into the bedroom, not outside. So she tries to kick Uncle Alan out. Also, Kevin made it clear that he's not going back with Dana into the 19th century. Surprise! Didn't see that one coming. All right? He doesn't have to. In the miniseries or in the book. He doesn't have to. But, they did. But whatever. So it doesn't happen that way in the book. Now, I could deal with a little Hollywood shape-shifting, if you will, if so much of it was not distorted. So the aunt does offer to give Dana answers about her mom on the speakerphone after Alan calls her. I'm trying to still figure out, like, where did they get this Botox-filled face black man who works for the LAPD? Like, everything, I just was like, what? What is happening? And not in a sci-fi good way, what is happening? Like, what is happening? Why? How can you chop and screw this series this way? Oh, it pains me. So, Alan starts talking about how he saved Denise, the aunt, right? By moving her out of New York, away from a family where it was dysfunctional. Surprise! Because black families can be healthy and have functional relationships. All right? So Alan and Dana both agree that nobody was good enough for grandma. Even though grandma left you that big old brownstone. But okay. There were no such details about Dana's family in the book. As I said, she was estranged. Both of her parents were dead. And her tangential uncle and aunt didn't really care for the fact that he was white. That's all we know. That's it. All right. As a result, we get an episode though, focused primarily on Kevin, a good white person, because we cannot have a slave movie without that. Okay. And like I told you, if white people were that good, because it only seems to be Tom Whalen and Margie that seem to be so bad, chattel slavery would have never lasted 2.5 centuries. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The treating of human persons in policy and deed as property. Everything about that, even written, is degrading. And to think that went on for 2.5 centuries throughout the Western Hemisphere, but certainly in the United States. So miss me with the good white people that have to be there. All right, so it's focused primarily on the details of Kevin, a good white person, and the terrible details about Dana's family past, because we must include again another bad black woman and make their familial structure pathological and toxic, while Kevin's sister is right there for him, worried and supportive. Because he may or may not have a problem that we don't really know all the details to. But we know Dana's life is dysfunctional. Get the fuck out of here. So yeah, so that's my episode 4 review, which was brief, but oh no, I do have some more to say about that. So then Kevin shows up to the hospital. This is when it got weird. Then Kevin shows up to the hospital looking for Dana. Alan throws him up against the car as he walks into the hospital. I guess there's no cameras there, and black men definitely get away with doing that to white men. Okay. Alan throws him up against the car and says he doesn't know what he's trying to do, but there's enough crazy in the family. So he's letting people know that the family's crazy too. All right. So Alan can only defend his niece when he is angry with the good white man. And when he's defending his niece, it's to purify the toxicity of his wife's side of the family. None of these characters are complicated. They're one-dimensional, and they don't have to be here. Once again, the book was the script. You actually could have done it just from the book. All right, because Uncle Alan isn't toxic. They don't have to say it. It persists through his one-dimensional stereotypical character. That's what's upsetting to me. So why are we even at the aunt's job for this episode? Like, why? We're at the hospital, not for her black eye, but so they can sit and have coffee. Like, for characters who did not have any main significance in the book, they're getting an awful lot of creative attention in the writing room and a little bit too much airtime because none of this makes sense. So, of course, Kevin comes in to save her from the hospital. Dana from the hospital. He apologizes to her for trying to get distance from her by not going back. This was completely out of their control in the book. That's what made it okay. Then the police catch them, okay, as he tries to help her escape. He tries to help Dana escape from the hospital and says she's not crazy, and they are going to do this together. They end up in a broom closet, towel closet, something like that, of some sort, and he gives her mother's wedding ring, saying that he thinks this is a way for her mother to be able to come back. And then she's in pain and disappears from the hospital. They just disappear. They disappear. They go back. The police finally break in because the hospital broom closet is so hard to break into. And they're gone. They watch them disappear. That was Kindred Miniseries episode 4. Y'all have a good rest of your day.